Good afternoon, everyone, from here in Virginia. So we have something a little different today that we'd like to discuss. We have a sociology professor here, Anthony Pearson, who is a new community member here at Synchronicity. So welcome, Anthony. I know you're still
Thank you.
getting settled, but things are starting to unfold. You're getting relaxed in your new home.
Yeah, very true. That's been a big obsession for the first
Yes.
few weeks. Yeah.
Um, and you're also a teacher of synchronicity meditation.
Yeah.
And you've studied Taoism as well. And I know that in your study and teaching of sociology, there are some things that interweave, we could say, from what little I know about the subjects, that there's a holistic aspect to the Tao. It encompasses holistic living, holistic life, and known as the way, the path of the unfoldment of the individual. And sociology, obviously, the study of society that's comprised of individuals. So that would be a very different society of individuals who are living from their wholeness than individuals who are living in fragmentation. I mean, that's my little
Yes.
understanding
Yeah.
of it. So, but this is your subject. So basically, I'm going to hand it over to you so you can share your wisdom, knowledge, understanding, insights about all of this. And there's so much that it can't possibly be covered in one session.
Yeah. It's
So
a
we're
lot.
going to, this is a taste to start, and then we'll meet up again. But this is a beginning. So, Anthony.
Okay. Very good. Um, well, in my professional life, I've devoted about 40 years to the study of sociology, and obviously the other great interest in my life has been spiritual growth and development. Um, so Taoist sociology, or that's kind of what I'm calling it at the moment, is an attempt to kind of unify these two themes in my life and integrate them into a new perspective. And sociology is a very interesting subject. It's also one that most people are unfamiliar with. It's a very deep, rich subject, and it's really about everything. It's defined as the social activity of human beings and the study of society, which covers everything from two people having sex in a bedroom to revolutions and large social movements and everything in between. So it's a fascinating subject to teach because it's everything really. You could even study things like UFOs as an aspect of popular culture. It covers everything.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's a fascinating kind of subject. And but as a teacher that for the better part of my career has been teaching, first and second year college students and introducing them to the subject, it's very difficult to organize this. Because it's how do you organize a course that's about everything, and
Good point.
sociology is very fragmented as a discipline. Usually, what sociologists do when they have a career in sociology is they get an interest and then they gradually narrow their focus through graduate study, and they will find one particular area that they want to devote their career to, whether it's gender studies or race relations, or whether it's inequality, and there's all different sub areas in sociology, and it gets pretty fascinating. And so they become specialists, but when you teach first and second year college students, you have to introduce this huge subject to them. And how do you do it? So it's very fragmented. So I've been looking for some sort of holistic model that allows you to present this subject in a way that fits it into a larger context. And Taoism kind of provided me that.
Interesting. So how would you define Taoism for those who might know about the Tao Te Ching and maybe some don't? They just have seen the word out there. They've maybe heard it in spiritual circles but not studied it. How would you define that for people?
Taoism is basically, what it literally means is the path or the way, and it's largely about balance. It's about finding balance in one's life and in one's relationship to society. And of course, it's largely associated with, Chinese culture. So it's a kind of philosophy, some might say it crosses into religious territory, but it's really more a philosophy of life, and it's about
Right.
balance and
Right.
stability. And so that's kind of what it represents to
Is
me,
this
yeah.
a symbol of the Tao?
Yeah,
Could
this
you-
is just a useful symbol, to illustrate some of what I would like to talk about. Because I see essentially what I'm teaching is understanding the relationship between the individual and society in a more balanced way. And, the white part of the diagram here represents the individual, and the black part of the diagram represents the environment or society. And traditionally, Eastern societies have emphasized social stability and order over individual freedom, and Western societies have emphasized individual freedom over stability and order. Okay, and in the 1960s, I think we reached a point where, because of technology, the development of technology, there was kind of a cross-pollination of these two cultures, these two philosophies, if you will. And that was experienced in the West in the 1960s with young people becoming interested in Eastern religions and meditation and things like this, and this cross-pollination that happened. And since then, Eastern societies have become largely preoccupied with individualism too. Western culture, to some degree, started to infiltrate and influence and colonize those cultures. And so they've become very individually focused too. But what's been lost in all this is understanding the influence that the social environment has on us. And that's where a lot of my, attention has been focused in the last few years, really, is trying to understand that relationship better.
Yeah, it seems like the more we understand that, the more we can understand ourselves and the way life works, and find better ways to handle our challenges in the times that there are clashes within society.
Yeah, my own view is that we can't really, we prize ourselves on the West in terms of being individuals and having choice and freedom.
Right.
And my own view is that until you understand the black side, you don't understand the white side. You have to understand what you're not before you understand what you are.
Okay, right.
So, and most people don't have what I call a sociological imagination, okay? The sociological imagination, it was a term or a phrase developed by the sociologist C. Wright Mills in the 1950s, very famous sociologist. And it basically means understanding the relationship between the individual and society, understanding the fact that our individual lives are shaped by powerful forces outside our control that we do not fully appreciate, that we cannot fully know. And the trouble is, if you start with this, starting point that we're individuals, we're free, we have free will, we make choices, and you don't understand the way in which we're initially programmed by our environment, then you don't really have freedom. So, there's a great scene in the movie Life of Brian, a Monty Python movie, where Brian is this kind of accidental messiah, and there are all these people following him, and they think he is, this enlightened being, and eventually they follow him to his house, and he's up on the balcony talking to this throng of people and saying, you don't need to follow anybody, you're all individuals, and they all repeat, we're all individuals. And so when you grow up in a Western society, you're programmed to think that you're free. You're programmed by the environment to think that you have choices. Well, that's programming. So that didn't come out of you. That came out of the culture and this constant reinforcement and programming. So when you start to understand the programming process and you start to understand how we're programmed by the environment and society, and by the time you're 12, it's a done deal, really. Maybe you have a little sexual programming left, but for the most part, the physical, the emotional, and the mental levels have been programmed. And, in my courses, I go into great detail about that programming, and then, of course, how to reprogram it. But if you just identify with the programming, you're essentially a biological robot.
And then you're not even aware of that at all.
No,
So
you
that's
think you're
where-
free. You think you're free.
So
'cause
the
you,
only way
yeah.
to break free is to become aware of it, first of all.
Yes, you have to understand the importance of the environment in shaping every aspect of our lives. That we often recreate, our parents' relationships, our relationship with our parents, in our interpersonal relationships. The emotional programming is all how our parents
Right.
respond to our feelings when we express them and how they set boundaries. But they were programmed by their parents.
Right.
And so the karmic cycle replicates itself, and here we are. We're all programmed to think we're free. Well, not so fast.
So we can break free. Is that what happened in The Matrix?
Yeah, kind of. Yeah, The Matrix would be another
Mhm.
good film. I love film and cinema, so
Right.
I use a lot of illustrations from film. Yeah.
Right. So for people who are watching this who may not be in college and they may not be studying sociology as an academic subject, although to me it seems like it's about life. And so it's a lot
Yeah.
more than just a subject because it's about us. We are the subject, right?
Yeah, we are. Yeah, ultimate we are.
So,
I mean, when
It's not like the study of cells, even though we're all connected to all of it, of course, but there's biology and all of these other sciences, but sociology is about the study of people, isn't it? The study of human beings as a collective.
It is, but it understands the human being as an environmental organism,
I see.
which
I
is
see.
a different take on it.
A little more
Yeah.
detached.
Yeah, and so there are all these incredible sociological experiments
Huh.
that have been designed where they put people in various circumstances to see how they respond. And I go through this very early in my course because I want people to understand that they're programmed, and that,
Yeah, I
their
see.
choices are conditioned by what everybody else is doing. And that's very dangerous, actually, because it can veer off, and you think you're acting out of individual free will, and you're actually just conforming to what's going on around you.
So where does the balance come in terms of, first of all, there's individual balance of mind, body, emotions, spirit. So we become balanced, and we're able to see more clearly, and does that help us to get out of the programming so that we can work together in a more harmonious way?
Yeah, I think when you look at...
I know that's simplified, but I'm just trying to bring it down to a simple understanding.
Yeah, I think to go back to the science fiction film idea, Isaac Asimov did the movie I, Robot, or wrote the book, the movie's based
Uh-huh.
on, and there's that moment when the android looks in the mirror and recognizes that he's a robot, and,
Huh.
the same moment happens in Blade Runner, And that's the moment of the beginning of personal freedom.
Ah, okay.
Because then we can start to consciously change the environment in a way that enhances our individual freedom and starts to create more balance.
It enhances our lives
Yeah, it's
So
all
that-
about balance.
so that we
and-
can live in enjoyment and have our needs met, but more than the needs met, our happiness and fulfillment and enjoyment of life. 'Cause
Right.
that gets compromised when our rights are impinged upon and our freedom is impinged upon and all
Our
that.
freedom is interdependent on other people's freedom. So
Yeah.
the idea that I can be free and you aren't free is a fallacy.
Yeah, yeah,
We all have to be free.
right.
And that's where social responsibility comes in.
Yes.
And my own view is that spirituality in the West has become too narcissistically focused. It's all about, and there's nothing wrong with that, by the way. Synchronicity, we have a full range of CDs and soundtracks that help you actualize your own abundance and other various aspects of your life. So there's nothing wrong with that. But it's not enough to simply focus only on your individual success, only on your individual
Right.
wealth, only on your individual freedom. You have to understand that occurs in a context. And the more other people are free, the freer you are.
Right.
And when you have really successful people in our society, like billionaires, and we do have and this is the other thing, is when you study sociology, you get a clear picture through data of the distribution of wealth. The average person understands that there's inequality in the world, but do you really understand the level of inequality in the world? When the richest 150 people in the United States have as much wealth as the poorest 150 million. And I think that's actually maybe not, it's more exaggerated than that even.
Wow.
So you just have a few people that have more wealth than, a large minority of the country. And people, when you just look at it from an individual perspective, you say, well, that's okay. They earn that money, et cetera, et cetera. But when you understand that everything is interrelated, you start to understand that, well, these two, when one goes out of balance, one part goes out of balance, the other part goes out of balance with it. And in the long run, that's going to inhibit the freedom of billionaires. So we think if I make it, I can just kind of forget about other people. But there's a responsibility to keep this balance, this basic balance, and it exists in every aspect of life, and in today's world, we're not in balance.
Right. There's more of a, what's missing is the heart aspect, because once people are in touch with that, they've got the minds, and we operate more from the mental level and intellectual level and decision level and the ego, and that's certainly all relative, valid and all that, but yet the heart is forgotten, because once we connect with that, my experience is that it also connects to others, and once you feel connected to others, you can't treat them poorly. You cannot allow them to suffer, because that actually, if we're going to be whole human beings, there's too much connection between each other to feel separate. To the extent that we feel separate is the extent that we can harm each other or kill each other, which happens. But the extent to which we're whole, we recognize the interconnection, what's called the oneness or unity. And it's not sameness, but it's that intimate connection as whole.
When the polarities go out of balance,
Yeah.
you lose awareness of oneness. And that's what's happened in society. And so you get rich divided against poor, you get black versus white, you get Republicans versus Democrats. And this is a manifestation of imbalance. And so by bringing these things into balance, you start to recognize the essential oneness, and this conflict starts to dissipate. So, and our individual lives cannot be works of art unless the society that we live in is a functional, healthy, vibrant society that's in balance with nature, and we're all in balance with each other. So balance has to be
Right.
the guiding principle in understanding how public policy should be derived, and how our own individual choices should be made. Everything you do affects other people and life on the planet. And if you make a choice which benefits you, but it hurts life or it hurts other people, in the long run, that's not going to serve you.
Yeah, and as you were saying that, I was noticing this symbol, which, if you look at it, there are the opposites there, but they're not divided. So I wonder if you could go more deeply into that symbology there.
Yeah, well, this is a visual representation of balance. That's what it is, the Taoist symbol. And to me, it's a beautiful representation of it. And as you can see, even when you look at the light side of the diagram, there is, a small dark, place there. And even when you're in the black, there's a small light place there. One polarity can dominate another, but it cannot eliminate it. So yeah, I use this in class a lot. I generally go into the black. The first part of my sociology courses, and a lot of the sociology course is about the black. And so, one of the questions I have to address with my students is, well, this is imbalanced because you're all about the environment. And yeah, because that's what people aren't aware of. If we were in a very, because you can go out of balance in either direction. You can have a collectivist society where individual freedom is lost, and that's the black dominating the white, or you could have a society where individual freedom makes no, feels like it has no responsibility to other people, and then the white dominates the black. In both of those situations, you're out of balance, and it leads to the same thing: tyranny, and people not unhappy, and stress, and everything else. So it's about understanding how these things relate and getting them into balance.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
So when you're teaching students, it's a lot more than studying a subject that they read something, maybe write a paper, get a grade. It seems like they're going to walk out with new perspective and possibly even transform themselves in the process.
Well, the other piece of this that we haven't touched on is that, when you stress the black and you start looking into it, it gets to be pretty, that's a deep rabbit hole, actually. Most people have not gone down that rabbit hole. You can make an argument that everything that happens to you in your life is predetermined, that there isn't free will. And it's a strong argument, actually, and maybe in future videos I will go deep into that.
I think that'd be, actually, I think we're about at that point.
Yeah.
And I think that is a good introduction to the next topic,
Yeah.
which will be in 2 weeks, actually.
But just as a teaser to this, the
Yes.
ultimate, what you ultimately get when you understand the black, and you come back to the white, you suddenly realize the incredible power that you have as an individual. That's the other piece. That gets
Fascinating.
into chaos theory and the
Right.
butterfly effect, and that the universe is completely sensitive. So
Okay.
most people actually don't recognize the real power of every individual choice and action.
All right, so we definitely need to, we're going to talk about
Yeah.
chaos theory and the butterfly effect.
We can,
And
yeah,
what's the other
absolutely.
thing you said?
Well, there's a whole lot of,
Okay.
it's, once you start to, again, once you journey into the black, then you come back to the white and you realize that you have an enormous responsibility for all and
Right.
everything. And
So free will versus destiny.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So stay tuned, everyone, and thank you for listening, and we look forward to joining you again in a couple of weeks.
Sounds good.
All right. Thank you, Anthony.
Thank you.